Alright. So, also, if people don't know, they should take a look at the mechanics for Modern Horizon 3. I'm not going to go over all of the mechanics because it would take about that. You can look at the mechanics there. I'm just going to go over the cards. Alright, so starting with number 1, Breaker of Creation. We have a okay, so it's a 6 and double colorless. So the distinction between generic mana and colorless mana is that you need to pay explicitly colorless mana. Hey, thank you much for the resub, Agelia. Oh my god. Let me give you fuck shit. Also I mentioned in the timer I'm gonna try to minimize chat interaction unless someone gives me like I don't know, we get raided by Ninja or something, or someone dropped like 20 gift subs or something. Thank you very much. Big Mike, okay, you. 19 months, very long time. Alright, anyway, back to what I was saying. So, Breaker Creation costs 6 generic and 2 colorless mana. You need to generate colorless mana from lands that explicitly say they generate colorless mana, or they have the diamond symbol on them. So, like, Forest, plains, mountain, steam vents, whatever, those don't generate colorless mana. You would need something like Painlands or whatever, like, Battlefield Forge that generates colorless mana. So that is one of the restrictions of this card. So it's a creature Eldrazi. When you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each colorless permanent you control. Hexproof from each color, Annihilator 2. So Annihilator 2 says, whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. And it's an 8/4. Um. Alright, so I had this rated as a C minus because I think that the it takes a lot of mana to cast it because it's like 8 mana. I understand there's like Eldrazi spawn, but I guess it depends on like how many Eldrazi spawn you're making. But it's also like an 8/4. It does have hexproof from each color, which is nice, but again, it's an 8/4. It means like the low toughness means it will probably trade with 2 blockers. So I don't know. It could be higher depending on like how easy it is to get Eldrazi spawn, but I'm just gonna try to leave it like in the C. Maybe a C. Eldrazi spawn are easy to make, but Devourer of Destiny, 5 generic, 2 colorless creature Eldrazi. You may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, at the beginning of your first upkeep, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put one of those cards back on top of your library, exile the rest. When you cast a spell, exile target permanent that's 1 or more colors. It's a 6/6. Okay, so look at the first part of the text. It's like it will let you it'll let you fix your draw from like the top 4 cards of your library, assuming you have it in your opening hand. I mean, that's nice. And when you cast a spell, you get to exile a permanent with 1 or more colors. So it's like a 2-for-1 in that way. So I'd put this as like a C plus. It's not a bomb or anything, but it's like pretty efficient. Again, the question here is how easily are going to be generating 7 mana and 2 of it colorless. Again, if you have like a lot of Eldrazi spawn, I could see this going up to minus. Oh, people are like wondering about my grading scale. It's like um B minus to like A or like bomb type cards, like B B my or sorry B plus to A are like bomb type cards, and then B minus B there's like good common, sometimes like maybe good uncommons usually go in that range. Like the bulk of the cards in your deck are probably gonna fall into like the C minus a C range. Anything that's like in the D, or if it's like D or D plus, like it's kind of like filler. I would say D plus is like filler, and then D is like the stuff that maybe really play if you really have like specific reason to it. And you should generally try to avoid putting anything that has like a D F rating. F is like basically any card that just doesn't seem to have like any really like limited application. And I forgot to mention this, it's not a. Alright. Drownyard Lurker 7. Creature Eldrazi Trilobite. Vigilance. When you cast or cycle Drownyard Lurker, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. It has cycling 2 blue, which means pay 2 in a blue, discard this card, draw a card. I mean, this is basically like your filler type card in the Eldrazi archetype. It does work. There is like a bunch of cards that work with like colorless things that cost 7 or greater, but you obviously can't fill your entire deck with these types of cards, so I would put this as like a C minus, just because like it is like reasonable filler because the cycling isn't like irrelevant, but again, it's like you can't fill your deck with like this type of card, or this is sort of like you play it when you have the 7 mana payoffs or like the Eldrazi payoffs. But I'm not. It's not a card I'm like really excited to like pick this highly. All right, Echoes of Eternity. 3 generic and 3 colorless Kindred enchantment Eldrazi. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. Um, I'm just gonna put this in like a D tier for constructed, because usually like it's gonna be hard to cast because it's triple colorless, and then um usually these types of cards are only like really good in like there's some niche scenarios where it could be really good. I could be wrong about this card. Again, like if Eldrazi spawn are really easy to make and there's like a lot of like good colorless triggers for Eldrazi, I could see this being doing a lot of stuff. But usually these types of cards like double down, or like Necrodom, no Necrodom. The one from like Crimson Vow, like those types of cards are usually kind of like meme tier and constructed, or say meme tier and limited. It's like much better in like constructed. I mean, you may have like the perfect Eldrazi deck where this comes together, but like I don't know. I think most of the time it's like, not going to happen. Alright, Eldrazi Ravager, which is 5 generic and a colorless creature Eldrazi. Annihilator 1. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices a permanent. Sacrifice 2 Eldrazi, return Eldrazi Ravager from your graveyard to your hand. And a cycling 2. Discard this card, draw a card. Okay, so again, I'm not like super excited about this card. It does have like recursion, because you could sacrifice Eldrazi spawns to bring it back. Like you could cycle it early and then use Eldrazi spawns to get it back. Um, something I didn't mention before is that cycling cards do get a little bit better in the context of the fact that there are like a couple ways to like reanimate a creature from the graveyard, which makes it better. But I don't know. I'm gonna say this is like maybe a C just because like it does have like a little bit of like recursion built into it or whatever. So it's like even if they destroy it the first time, there's a chance you could just get it back. I mean, it is just like a 6/6 that doesn't have any evasion, and like Annihilator 1 largely like it depends on where you're at in the game. It just largely means like, oh, they just sack a land. Like I think I'm a little higher on this because again it's like 6 versus 7, but I don't know. It's like it's just it just depends on like how easily we think like these Eldrazi are gonna get cast. All right, so Emrakul, the world anew. This was like the first card I think that was spoiled from the set. It costs 12. It's a legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast a spell, gain control of all creatures target player control. Flying, protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn. And then when Emrakul, the world anew leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. And then Madness, pay 6 colorless. So, 12 mana is a lot. You're gonna have like a lot of Eldrazi spawn to be able to play it. I mean, this is a card that logically, if you can cast it at some point, you're probably going to like win that game. Um, the protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn only applies to like it's basically just saying it can't be like destroyed the same turn it was played or whatever. Like because it won't like you can't like target it with any spells or you also wouldn't be able to like target it with like say Solitude, which is not a card. I guess. Well, I guess that's I think that's like a special guest card. Or I didn't actually go over a special guest, but so it's like it's like a big deal. Yeah, you would need it's like a very big build around or whatever. That's why I had it rated like very low for when I did my like analysis. Like um like 12 is just like very rough to like play. Like you have to like have things go really like basically. So I would it's I mean so at the moment I'm saying it's like a D plus or whatever just because like most of the time you draft this card you're just never going to cast it, but again there might be like some scenario that you're able to do it. I don't know. In the madness, I did look at the set. There are a couple ways to discard a card from your hand, but then you also need to have like 6 colorless to be able to pay for it when you madness it. But I mean that is like an interesting like option, like if you can set that up. But again, it's like a lot, and it's a 12/12 flying. Pretty good. I mean, the assumption is if you do cast this, you'll like win the game, but like we're just gonna guess like 9 out of 10 times you'll do this, and it was like else. Okay. So glaring flesh raker, 2 generic and a colorless creature Eldrazi drone. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, glaring flesh raker deals 1 damage to each opponent. Okay, so like if you look at the base stats on the card, it's not very good. It's like gray ogre. It's not gray. It's like gray ogre, but like this could help again with like casting those big Eldrazi if you have like the cheap Eldrazi and you start stacking up a bunch of spawn. So like if your goal is to cast like an Emrakul or an Ulamog or Kozilek, this is like a kind of card. This is like the type of card you're gonna look for highly, and you're also gonna look for the other colorless cards. Also to note that even though I'm looking at colorless Eldrazi now, and it doesn't look like there's that many, this set also has Devoid Eldrazi, which costs colored mana to cast, but they're considered colorless. So there's actually like quite a few cheap colorless Eldrazi that work with this. So like I think in the right deck, this is going to be like a C plus or whatever. Like you're going like if you're just taking this and you don't have like any other Eldrazi or whatever. If you're actually like have like the devoid deck, then decent. So like I'm just gonna put it like there's gonna be some times like times it is, and it does have like it does cause incidental damage with the pinging, which is not irrelevant. The pinging the opponent. All right. So Haragast erupting Nullkite. That's a lot of tech. That's a little hard to say, but 9. Legendary creature Eldrazi Dragon. Emerge 6 and 2 red. So Emerge says you can cast a spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost reduced by that creature's mana value. So, like what that means is if you sacrifice a creature that costs like 4 or whatever, then the Emerge cost, the difference you would pay is 2 and 2 generic and 2 red. When you cast a spell, you may exile your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. Flying. Each creature spell you cast has Emerge. The Emerge cost is equal to its mana cost. It's a 6. So this card, I'm actually like pretty high on the card because of the Emerge. It means like logically you could have this on like turn 5 or something, depending on like how you're curving out or whatever. I could definitely see this being cast on like turn 5. um and if you do cast on 5 and like maybe your hand's not very good, you exile your hand, you draw 3 cards, you're pretty happy. It also lets you cast those other giant Eldrazi because then they'll also have a merge. So like assuming you have other like, other creatures laying around that you don't care about, you can just like, okay, that's my Emrakul. Oh, again, it's you need to get this in play first. So I'm gonna rate this as like I would rate this as like a, maybe like A minus. It's like it's really good. Like this is the type of card that like you definitely just like first pick it, and like you don't need to do anything super special with it. It's just a large flying creature that give you 3 more cards to work with. So all right, it that heralds the end. One generic and 1 colorless creature Eldrazi drone. Colorless spells you cast with mana value 7 or greater cost 1 generic less to cast. Other colorless creatures you control get +1/+1. So, and it's a 2/2. So these type of Lord cards can get really. This is not only like a Lord card; it's also it like indirectly ramps like your really expensive creatures. So it's not as insane as like saying, oh, all your colorless spells cost 1 less. That would be really broken. But I think they had that before. It was like Herald of Kozilek or Herald of Kozilek. Yeah. And this card was very good in its format. Herald of Kozilek says colorless spells you cast cost 1 less. But I mean, this is actually pretty good. The deck that you want to have it in. So I'm rating it as like a C plus. Depending, it also buffs all like your Eldrazi spawn into like 1. Isn't like irrelevant. I think it's a decent card. It could be like a B minus, maybe. I had it as a B minus. It might have been a little high. Also, hey, the young PZ, how's it going? Sorry, I'm kind of not looking at the chat too much while I'm doing the set review because I need to look at my notes. But hope you're doing well. All right, so Kozilek, the Broken Reality, 9 generic legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast a spell, up to 2 target players each manifest 2 cards from their hand. For each card manifested this way, you draw a card. To manifest a card, put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. Turn it face up anytime for the mana cost if it's a creature card. Other colorless creatures you control get +3/+2. So this is a card I think when I looked at it, I kind of had it like in the bomb territory just because like yes, it does cost 9 mana, but like the effect is like really powerful. Like basically when you cast this, it's a 9/9. You get to turn those 2 lands in your hand into 5/4s basically and draw a card. And if you think your opponent has like good cards still left in their hand, you can manifest their cards in their hand and also draw cards. Like that's actually kind of absurd. Like say you think the opponent has like a removal spell for Kozilek, you could just well let me I guess they choose the cards they manifest, right? I don't know. But like say they just have like 2 cards in hand and you think one of them's a removal spell for Kozilek, you could just make them manifest both of those cards, and you get to draw cards off of it, and then your creatures are bigger than their creatures. So that's why I had this as like a B plus. I could be wrong. I had it originally as an A, but that seemed like a little too generous because it cost 9. But I mean the fact that like again it turns cards in your hand into 5/4s, and you draw a card off of them. It also buffs any other colorless creatures you control too. So it's like it's not just the cards that you manifested that get the big buff. Like it could be your Eldrazi spawn. Now they're 3/3. So I mean, I think this is definitely like bomb. Like I said, this like assuming you can cast it, but again, I rated it a little bit lower again. Mana rough, be rough. Like the average person might not be able to cast it. Hey there, Josie. How's it going? Yeah, if you're ramping as possible. So I guess that's true. You might not actually have like land in your hand when you cast your 9 drops, so it gets like a little bit worse, I guess, in that case, because like yeah, you're not gonna get the value from it. If that's the case, I don't know. I guess it just depends on like how easily it is to like ramp into the Eldrazi stuff, and like I did. That's the reason like I looked at the the whole set before like I looked at the entire set basically, and then I was like, okay, maybe these cards enable this other strategy, and then I went back and I like revised things. Yeah, I guess it could be yeah, no, I guess that's fair. It dies the removal has been called in the chat. Fair dies the removal has been called in the chat. But yeah, it could be lower. I'm willing to like revise my ratings. Like I'm sure there'll be like a 17 lands, 17 lands stream like at right like the week the set comes out, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, my ratings were all wrong. But I don't know. I like. I mean, I maybe I just like the card too much. Okay, so Kozilek's command. X and 2 colorless Kindred Instant Eldrazi. Choose 2. Target player creates X01 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifices creature, add colorless. Target player scries X and draws a card. Exile target creature with mana value X or less. Exile up to X target cards from graveyards. So this does like a lot of little things that are like not necessarily worth a card individually, but like the thing that's good about it is that it's very flexible. It does have like the cost that you need to spend 2 colorless on it, but like the first part is like, oh, I can make a bunch of chump blockers that can like ramp. They also have like synergy with my Eldrazi lords or whatever. If I have any Eldrazi lords, the target player scries X and then draws a card. That's kind of like, not super exciting. I mean, I think they had like Urza's. That thing was like on Urza's command or whatever. It was just like Urza's command. The scry 2 and then draw a card. But yeah. And then this is like exile target creature mana value X or less, which again you're paying more mana to like exile their thing. So like if you're paying 5 mana to exile their 3-drop or whatever, it's like not efficient. But again, it's like you're getting the benefit of like the flexibility, and then this is like the exile up to X target cards from graveyards. Like that doesn't seem like it matters, but there is like a fair amount of like reanimation stuff, and there's also like threshold. Like there's like a little bit of threshold. It's like it does matter, like being able to like hit their graveyard. But I was saying, yeah, the Eldrazi are like mostly focused in Teamer, like the Eldrazi and the Spawn stuff. Let's see. I had it rated as like a C plus, just because it's like flexible. I don't think it's like quite like super good. Like Urza's command was kind of fell into like the C plus territory if I remember correctly. I think this will probably play out similarly, but it could be better than Urza. Possible. Alright, null elemental blast, 1 colorless instant, choose one, counter target multicolored spell, destroy target multicolored permanent. This is basically like sideboard card only. There's way too much potential for this card to like not do anything, but the thing is like when you do have the matchup where it's good, it's gonna feel really good because there is a fair number of like multicolored cards. Actually, like if I look at my multicolor, well, I guess that's not true because a lot of the multicolor cards in this set have devoid on them, so they're not actually multicolored. But I think it's something like probably between like the straight up multicolor cards and the MDFCs. Like you'll probably find like a decent number of targets. I think there's like about 50 or 60 targets or whatever. I'm trying to think exactly, like because you have to count the you have to ignore the devoid creatures that are multicolored, and also like when I looked at the MDFCs, I kind of lumped them all together. There's some like single color MDFCs and there's color ones, like all the planeswalkers, for the flip planeswalkers, for example. They're single color on the front side, but they become multicolor after they flip. You just avoid playing that card in your main deck and you'll be fine. Null Drifter. 7 creature Eldrazi elemental. When you cast this spell, draw 2 cards. So no shenanigans with like blinking. There's some cards that can like exile a creature from play and bring it back into play. The flying Annihilator 1, evoke 2, and blue. Um, I'm. I think I had this originally as like a C plus, and I was like thinking it could be maybe like a B minus. I don't know. I think it's probably closer to like a C plus. Like it's almost getting to the point where maybe if you cast, like it depends on how soon you're casting this. Like I guess if you're casting this on 5, and like if you go like riding Chrysalis or something, it's a null drifter or whatever, then that's pretty insane because like yeah, it's like functionally like a 4/4 flyer on 5, but draw 2 makes it better. It's hard to say honestly because I don't don't really want to put every like I think it's like quite good. It's just like I mean because it's flexible. I think that's the main thing I liked about it. That's flexible. Like it's divination when you can't do anything else, and then when you have like all your mana set up, it's a 4/4 flyer that draws 2. That's why I had it as like a B minus, but I don't know. It's you kind of be in between. Right, Twisted Riddle Keeper 8, Creature Eldrazi Sphinx, emerge 5 colorless and a 5 generic, a colorless and a blue. When you cast a spell, tap up to 2 target permanents, put a stun counter on each of them. If a permanent with a stun counter will become untapped, remove 1 from it instead. Flying 5/5. So, yeah. Let's see. So, like, say you are playing this on again. You're probably playing this on turn. Like, you play this on turn 5 or something. Like, you play a 4-drop. Well, I mean, it could potentially come out on turn 4. I guess. Like, if you play a 3-drop, you play a 3-drop, and then you sack the 3-drop, and then you would pay 4 from the emerge cost. It's like, so yeah, you could potentially have this on like turn 4 because of the emerge, and then yeah, the fact that you can like stun a land or whatever, you could really set your opponent back by stunning one of their land, or you know, like, or you know, even if you just cast it like late in the game, and you stun like 2 of their creatures, that could be a big deal or whatever. So this could be like I had this like a C plus. It could be like again depending on how like lucky how soon you get this out. Like it's like on average, or it could be like higher, but I'm gonna say there's like a plus for now. But it just feels like a very big tempo play, so it could be like a B minus. Alright, Ulamog the Defiler 10. Legendary creature Eldrazi. When you cast a spell, target opponent exiles half their library, rounded up. Ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the graded mana value among cards in exile. Ulamog has Annihilator X, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. So, yeah, this doesn't have any evasion. Like, it has, like, similar issue to, like, Kozilek. It does have ward sack 2 permanents. Yes, I guess I could sack 2 lands. I do like that this has synergy. It doesn't. It has synergy. So like it like when on average when you're casting this, it's probably going to exile like 10 cards from the opponent's library because it does cost 10. Um, like, but the fact that like it could be greatest mana value among cards in it doesn't necessarily need to be the cards that were exiled by Ulamog. It could be cards you exiled other ways. In Annihilator X, so like we're looking at like the potential, like if it's an Annihilator 6 or whatever, that means if this attacks once, it probably like destroyed all your opponent's land or most of their land. But I don't know. I again I had this like rated really high, but I guess yeah, Ward making them sack like 2 lands or whatever. It's probably not as big of a deal. So maybe it's like really closer to like a C then, but I don't know. You know, now I had to like rethink my rating that I made earlier, but I will look at the chat after I'm done with this. I just need to go through 2 more cards. I'll take a break with them. All right, Warp Tusker 7. Creature Eldrazi Board Beast, Reach. When you cast or cycle Warp Tusker, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. Cycling 2 and a green, discard, draw a card. It's a 6/8. I mean, it's just like a very large thing or whatever. I had the other one rated as like a C minus. I mean, this is probably gonna be like very similar. You're not gonna want to fill your deck with this. It's like it's good with like the 7 mana matter stuff, basically. And but I mean, it's not like very exciting. It's like because they've actually I think they've had like a card similar to this, but I guess this is like more flexible, right? It was like brood birthing or no, not brood birth. Like I don't know. There was like an instant that drew a card and it made like a 1/1 scion. But this has like more flexibility because it can also be game. It also makes the 0/1 after you cast it too, but again, I'm not like super excited about it. And then the last colorless Eldrazi card that is purely colorless and not like the void. It is Wastegate Battle Mage, 1 generic and 1 colorless creature Eldrazi wizard. Kicker green and or 1 in a blue. When you cast a spell, if it was kicked with its green kicker, exile target artifact or enchantment the opponent controls. When you cast a spell, it was kicked with its 1 in a blue kicker, return target creature and the opponent controls to its own hand. So, like, okay, so like I guess the floor on this is a 2/2. That's not like good. Like the blue kicker is it becomes a separatist void mage or whatever. So it's like a 4 mana man of war, which is not like exciting. Like maybe in the context of like you bounce like the really expensive Eldrazi, it's cool, but a lot of the Eldrazi have cast triggers, so it's like it's not as great to like bounce it. It's like it's better. Obviously, if they sacked a bunch of like Eldrazi spawn to cast their Eldrazi, and you bounced it, and they can't replay it, it's really good. And then there's gonna be some scenarios where you pay both the kickers and you actually get like to exile an artifact or enchantment and do the bounce, then it's kind of like the jackpot. So that's why I had this rated as like a C plus because it could be like really really good when you get like all of the things. But I mean, it depends. Because it does ask you to do a lot, but I mean, blue and green are like the colors that are going to be like really interested in like doing the colorless Eldrazi shenanigans. So it's probably like very viable all 3 modes that deck. You know, just like this is not like the type of card you would consider like, oh, I'm just gonna splash it and stuff. So I don't know. Who knows?